Colton, you had a very public experience coming out. You did a television interview that opened the floodgates for people to start talking. I'm curious, what have you learned throughout this whole experience since you've come out?
A lot. I have learned a lot. And I think like there is, weird or corny as it sounds, like there was a lot of learning experiences for me from hearing some of the harsh criticism and hearing some of the feedback that I was getting. And it helped me, and just helped me grow as a human being.
Do you regret coming out in such a public forum?
No, I don't. I mean, if I look back at that interview, of course I can nitpick certain things that I said, and I think one that stands out to me, like when I watched it back, was I just wanted to make it clear that I didn't intend to use any of the ladies or Cassie as like a stepping stone to my happiness and my freedom. That was never my intention.
You brought up Cassie, and she filed a restraining order against you in 2020, which she later dropped. But when she did file, there were claims that you had put a tracking device on her car and that you had sent harassing texts, that you were outside of her parents' home. With you coming out now in such a public forum, there has been a lot that has come back up, and your treatment of women has come into question. What would you like to say about that situation now?
I would say that I've ran for myself for 29 years, and there is no excuse for any behavior of mine that was holding on to this straight identity or that was operating out of fear of being gay and being outed. I think just coming to terms with who I was hard enough, and then now realizing my actions and sort of what I did to Cassie and my friends and her family and what I put them through was so wrong. And I'm so sorry, and I think selfishly I'm very upset with myself that I might not ever have closure, and I might not ever be able to apologize in a satisfactory manner for not only her but for everybody. And I think that's what hurts, is I don't think I'm ever going to be able to really, address things the way that I should or could.
After you did your television interview, did you reach out to Cassie? Have you tried to talk to her?
I have not. Her and I sort of have just this agreement not to go into details of our breakup and not get into it all. I think it was hard for me to watch her name get brought back up in all of this, and for that I'm very, very sorry, because that shouldn't be the case. And like, I know people have a lot of questions, but people also need to realize we have an agreement together to not talk about it. That's, the part in all of this that is challenging and hard. I would want nothing more than to say I am sorry and take ownership and accountability for my actions and what I did.
Did you ever come out to Cassie, whether it was during your time together romantically or as friends or leading up to your interview?
I didn't. I never had the courage to talk to her while we were in a relationship, and especially after. I didn't have the courage to come out to myself, and until this last year. So no, I didn't.
I think it's really important to point out that you should not be using your sexuality or your coming out to negate the severity of the allegations. And I think that criticism was worthy.
100%. And I think that was never my intentions. And after coming out, people, went back to my past and what I went through in there. And that has so many layers to it and so much more to it than people will ever know. And just going into details of that isn't appropriate for us and sort of the arrangement we have. And I never want people to think that I'm coming out to change the narrative or to brush over and not take responsibility for my actions. And now that I have this gay life, that I don't have to address my past as a straight man. And for that, I would say that was never my intentions, if that's how it came off in the interview. And
So I understand that you can't talk about it, and you want to respect her in that way.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you, and you referred to this during your television interview. You said that you messed up and that you regret the way that that relationship ended. Why did you act the way that you were alleged to have acted?
I think I knew in my heart of hearts that Cassie was like my last straight relationship. And she was somebody who I loved and fell in love with, and someone that I thought could make me straight. Not being able to look myself in the mirror and confront my demons and be okay with who I was as a person was the biggest regret that I've had in all of this. You know, hurting people in my life, not only Cassie, but hurting my friendships, controlling situations to try to grasp at any part of this straight fantasy that I was trying to live out was so wrong. And I don't know if I'll ever get closure, or be able to forgive myself for some of the things that I said and did. And I just vow and promise to move forward in a positive direction and never repeat those. And that's all I can do.
When the words restraining order, stalking, abuse, when they're put out there, I think there's a lot of questions that come up. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, were you ever physically abusive in any way?
No, never. And those words are hard to hear. And I think that the thing that gets me every time is the abuse and all that. That's not who I am as a person. While I own I made a lot of mistakes, I just, it's hard saying those words. Mm-hmm. It is.
If Cassie reached out to you and had questions, would you be willing to sit down with her and answer anything that she is curious about?
Of course. I think that for me, I would love nothing more to have closure and love nothing more to answer questions for her, if she had any. Yeah, I mean, that's the least I can do.
When you went on The Bachelor, mm-hmm. obviously that was a show where you were going in to date a large group of women. I think a lot of people are wondering, was that all a lie when you went in? Were you going in with the genuine hopes of meeting a woman that you would marry? And did you think that you would be married to a woman for the rest of your life?
My feelings were they were real and they were genuine going into it, because I was just running from my truth and who I was for my entire life. And it only made it more confusing and harder on myself by falling in love with Cassie. I think that was the part that confused me the most, you know?
Do you regret going on The Bachelor?
I mean, I regret how I handled myself, and I regret bringing other people into my lies and my deception and how I went about that.
One of the reasons why you went on The Bachelor, I would imagine, was to fall in love. Yep. Now you are living in your truth. Mm-hmm. Do you still want to fall in love? Do you want to be married? Do you want to have kids?
More than anything. The whole point of coming out, too, is so I can actually have a real emotional connection with a man and not have to hide it, not have to be in the closet. I want a partner and a husband more than anything, and I want a family. I want kids. I want dogs. I want the whole 9 yards. And I never knew that was possible until I came out and I got to do research and meet people and ask questions and actually lean into my truth.
You also, in your television interview, said that you tried to take your own life because you were harboring that secret. I'm so sorry that you went through that. Yep. But now that you have come forward, you've come out, you have a platform, you want kids, What would be your message to the LGBTQ community, to the youth that are feeling suicidal?
I would tell them that they're not alone. I would tell them that it gets better and to keep having the courage and the strength every day to wake up and to try your best to live your truth in whatever capacity and whatever that means. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because I was. And I met with a therapist and a psychiatrist, and we spoke about everything. And it was the first time in my life that I ever truly unpacked everything that went on.
Did you know anyone who was gay, or did you have any role models that you could look to and that you could see yourself represented?
We had one gay guy in my entire town, and at the time he was sort of the butt of every joke, especially in the locker room and especially on the football field. And it was never a good thing. It was never a cool thing. I would have done anything to have a gay professional football player in the NFL so that I could have looked and been like, I want to be like him. And I just didn't have that. We didn't have that. We still don't really as a society.
Is that part of the reason why you wanted to come out in a public forum and do this show, so that kids growing up can have someone to look to in the media?
I think that's definitely a factor in my decision to actually do the show. I know that I have a lot to learn. And honestly, when I came into this, I was like, I didn't want to be a role model, but I don't have a choice. Because while people are coming out saying, we don't need another white man coming out, we've heard this story before, I'm here to tell you, I grew up in Central Illinois. And as an athlete, as a football player specifically, I didn't have representation. And I know that there's far more representation than just who I am physically, but also in the industry and in the community. And there's so many different levels that we can do better and help support one another. And that's what I want to do.